mind. I believe Friday there were several women in the church sewing diapers for women, or for kids around the world, sewing diapers and maybe dresses, some other items. I'm not sure what particularly.
Angel tree.
What's that?
Angel tree.
The angel tree. Every year at Christmas, this faith family has a tree. They work with the Salvation Army. Last year we were the only place in Winfield that had an angel tree that benefited many, many local kids. Thank you. Others, was there something else?
Helping hands.
Helping Hands. This faith family is one of the founding churches of Community Helping Hands, where people that are in need, they go and they receive help with things like utilities, paying for medicines and supplies. We also have a blessings box. Has anyone seen the blessings box? Where things like hygiene items, diapers, baby wipes, even baby food has been placed in that box.
Food pantry.
The food pantry, yes. We help to contribute to the food pantry. There's boxes throughout the building, outside the worship space. Pretty impressive, right? The ways that your hearts share God's heart with a hurting world. This faith family values children. Then the Pharisees went out and they laid plans to trap him in his words. They sent the disciples to him along with the Herodians. Teacher, they said, we know that you are a man of integrity and that you teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You aren't swayed by others because you pay no attention to who they are. Then tell us, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay the imperial tax to Caesar or not? But Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, you hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax. They brought him a denarius, and he asked them, whose image is this, and whose inscription is on that coin? Caesar's, they replied. Then he said to them, so give back to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. And when they heard this, they were amazed. So they left him, and they went away. This is God's word spoken for you, and the people say together, thanks be to God. Please bow your heads in prayer. Gracious and loving God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable unto you, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Jesus doesn't take the bait, right? In this passage, Jesus doesn't take the bait of the gotcha question that's posed to him with the intent to really disparage him in front of the community. And he resists that. Whose head is on the coin? He says, similar to the question that we were each pondering earlier today. His opponents would answer Caesar's, right? And a good paraphrase of the way that Jesus' final reply to them might be, because he references Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 and 27, he basically says, give to Caesar the things that are stamped as Caesar's, and give to God the things that are stamped in the likeness of God's own image. Basically, he says each of you is the living stamp of God's own image. So Caesar's coins should be treated as Caesar's, and treat God's coins, human beings, God's children, as beloved children who bear the image, the stamp, the baptismal imprint of God in the world. Take responsibility in a moment of pettiness and squabbling to think and to care and to help there be justice and peace and mercy and grace for the lost, the lonely, and often the outcast children in our world. So when we do well when we are doing God's will, right? This is the real upside down, turning on its head, flipping the coin answer that Jesus gives us today. We do better, we do well, when we do God's will. And that means returning to God, the focus of what really is God, what belongs to God. When we do well, we increase our financial standing, right? We think. When we act with justice, we improve our spiritual standing. When we act with mercy and compassion and grace and give forgiveness to someone that we think is unforgivable, we are changing ourselves. We're flipping the coin in the process of living our lives. Think for a few minutes about your last week of experiences in life, when you had an opportunity to do some upside down, flipping the coin sort of spiritual rebirth and renewal. Jesus would say, that's the gotcha question. You see, you're given so many hours in a day, so many minutes in an hour, right? So many seconds in a minute to spend to return to God. Is there anything you would have done differently in your life this week? We posed these questions to the 12 confirmands over the course of 2 different days this week, where each of them sacrificed staying in bed or doing anything else on a beautiful day each day, and they came here and they committed to know more about Jesus and the love that Jesus has for them, and the gift of a faith family such as this one. So Jesus is saying, if Caesar wants a few pieces of silver from you, give Caesar the silver. Your act will remind you, though, that a person's value is not determined, Jesus said, by any material goods. Is your worth determined by anything material? Or are you, in fact, as we celebrated at Edith Krepp's funeral, far more precious than rubies? The people of Haiti, who live in grinding poverty, they live in the poorest of the poor countries in the Western Hemisphere. Has anyone here traveled to Haiti? Just out of curiosity, okay. They live in the poorest of poor countries in our Western Hemisphere. They understand what the poorest children in our nation live without. You can ask any child in Haiti and they will get it. They will say, gotcha, right? When asked by tourists to explain how God would permit such misery, the Haitians often answer by a Haitian proverb. And the translation of their proverb is this: God gives, but doesn't share. What it means is God gives us human beings everywhere everything we need to flourish. But God isn't the one who is supposed to divvy up the loot. A Haitian proverb. God gives all human beings everything we need to flourish. But God isn't the one who is supposed to divvy up the loot. That change is laid upon us. Matthew's gospel brings it home today. Mahatma Gandhi would tell us, in the words of Christian belief, be the change. Be the literal change that you want in the world. Flip the coin, so to speak. So what new opportunities are there for individuals in this faith family or in the congregation as a whole to bring justice to children in the world? What new opportunities do you see? What has God placed on your heart? Because we're seeing and we're naming food pantries, blessing boxes, Kids of the Kingdom that impacted 67 local kids. We're naming 12 confirmands. We're naming intergenerational Sunday school, where people of all ages can see that they bear the face of Christ in the world. So we don't have to be cynical or carelessly optimistic, right, about the status of American children, because we hear, as we heard from the psalmist today, that it's time for us to sing a new song, to imagine and dream new dreams. And who, after spending just a few minutes watching the news, isn't with me on the fact that we need to be dreaming a few new dreams? I was deeply saddened last night about 10:30 when I was aware that one of our confirmands had his only forms of transportation to school, a bike and 2 scooters, stolen from his house. Children like Gail, her story is very pivoting. Gail is 8 years old, living in Chicago. A local bank had a contest, and they never, ever probably imagined what their essays that they were going to receive. But the Chicago bank asked for essays from children about their life story. And this was Gail, age 8, who wrote the essay of her life. She says, in my neighborhood, there's a lot of shooting, and 3 people got shot. On the next day when I was going to school, I saw a little stream of blood on the ground. One day after school, me and my mother had to dodge bullets. I was not scared. There's a church and a school that I go to in my neighborhood. There are a lot of stores in my neighborhood. There are robbers that live in my building. They broke into our house twice. There are row houses in my neighborhood, and a man got shot and he was dead. And I saw it, she writes. By King High School, Susan Harris, she was in high school. She got shot and she died. It was in the newspaper. When me and my mother was going to church, we could see the fire from the guns being shot in the 4414 building near where we live. I was not scared, she says. In my neighborhood, there are too many fights. I have never been in a fight before. There are many trees in my neighborhood. God is going to come back one day and judge the whole world, not just my neighborhood. I know these are really, really bad things, but I have some good things in my neighborhood too. Like sometimes my neighborhood is peaceful and quiet, and sometimes there's no shooting. When me and my mother and some of my friends go to the lake, we have a lot of fun. Sometimes the children in my building go to Sunday school with me too. Also, the building I live in is so tall, I can see downtown Chicago. And I can even see the lake. It looks so pretty. I believe in God, and I know one day we will be in a gooder place than we are now, she writes. Sometimes the stories are so sad and so painful that we stand in line getting our coffee at College Hill as we ponder words and a message to say, and we weep, don't we? We weep because our hearts are heavy of the realities of a world that is in need of more love and joy. And we weep, and those moments are moments when Christ would say, the value is far more worthy than that stamped on a coin. The value is so much more worthy when it comes to human life. In the U.S. this year, the statistic is there are 4.5 million children who don't have health coverage and may not be able to go to a doctor in need. Here, even in this country, a 6-year-old half a world away would know that there are 15 million children who are hungry. 15 million children. It's just hard to get your head around the statistics, isn't it? And yet I love the poem by Albert Einstein, the poem that is written, out of the clutter and out of the chaos, we are charged to find simplicity. From discord, find harmony. In the middle of difficulty and suffering lies opportunity for you to be who God needs you to be. So with the flip of a coin, you can refocus a child's life, and a child's life can be transformed. Please bow your heads in prayer. Loving God, thank you for being with us always. Thank you for helping us to be kind and loving. Thank you for the grown-ups and the kids in many places who are working like all of us, to make things fair so that all children can have what they need: food, shelter, clothes, and a sense of belonging and purpose. Help us each to move forward with hope, remembering that you are with us, that you have stamped us in your own image. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen. As a faith family, let's join together in the affirmation of faith. As you are able, please rise. Hearing their cry, God delivered the children of Israel from the house of bondage. Loving us still, God makes us heirs with Christ of the covenant. Like a mother who will not forsake her nursing child, like a father who runs to welcome the prodigal home, God is faithful still. Each week our offerings are a witness about moments when we've caught a glimpse of Jesus Christ. And your offerings are a witness about those moments. All right. Every day in our nation, nearly 15 million children are living in poverty. Every day in our nation, nearly half of children in poverty and their families don't have enough food. Millions of children living in America are homeless or have unstable housing. Nearly 70% of children in poverty have parents who work but don't earn enough to lift the family out of poverty. In most states, center-based child care for babies costs more than in-state college tuition. Unaffordable child care keeps many parents from being able to work and keeps other working parents in poverty. Parents wonder, how long must we cry for help? In communities everywhere, families experience injustice. We wonder, how long must we cry for help? Friends, there's a special offering envelope in the pews if you feel inclined to gift the 5 music scholars that are sharing their time and talents with us throughout the year. Several have been here even beyond a year. There's a special opportunity to gift them today because they are children that have grown up in a faith and are here sharing. So they're big kids, which we care about.
Who's